travelers. I'm your host, the C-Dot that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. Well, Christmas has come once again, which means it's time to take a look at the classic Canadian TV series, The Raccoons. This year I will be discussing my thoughts on the first season and how I think the episodes hold up for when I watched them as a kid. I won't go into too much detail with the episodes in order to avoid spoilers, and these are just my opinions on the episodes. So if you happen to rank these episodes differently, let me know in the comments section below and see how you or others feel differently. Without further ado, here is my review on the first season of The Raccoons. The first episode, to start off with, has one of my least favorite types of cliches for any television series, the misunderstanding episode. In this episode, the pigs overhear several of our heroes plotting something against Cyril Sneer, and from there it's just the pigs and Cyril trying to figure out what the Raccoons, Cedric, Sophia, Schaefer, and Brew are up to. In my opinion, the biggest weakness of this episode is the writing. I've seen a lot of episodes where the heroes say one thing but the villains misunderstand it as being something else, and then the episode is just everyone waiting for the episode to end with what's actually going on. This was a really big, disappointing first episode, and I could see this turning people away from the show for how generic the formula is. This is a much better episode and has a great payoff at the end. Bert, wanting to prove he can do something on his own to Melissa and Ralph, decides to climb Mount Evergreen as it has never been climbed before due to a mysterious monster that guards the mountain. While I don't think this is the funniest or epic episode of the show, I do think it has two things going for it. One is the music. I've always loved the music of this series, and this episode shows how grand and epic the songs can be when used in the right way. Two is the ending. I won't give anything away, but let's just say that the monster has a very silly reason for protecting what's at the top of the mountain. This used to be one of my all-time favorite episodes as a kid, but now it just annoys me. Bert, Ralph, and Cedric go on a camping trip to Bert and Ralph's old childhood fort to indoctrinate Cedric into their secret club, and the one test Cedric must pass to join is to sleep in a haunted house across the lake from their campsite. I will get one of the positives out of the way and say that I love this episode for its atmosphere. I wasn't scared of this episode as a kid, but it did creep me out when they got to the house for the music and the design of the house. But the problem I have after rewatching this episode is that it's a girl power episode, with Melissa wanting to come along, and she gets mad when the guys say she can't because of the guys only club rule. I hate episodes like this because of how forced the conflict is and how they have to have the girl save them from whatever trouble the boys are in. If I were to rewrite this episode, I would just have Bert and Ralph say that this is just a guy's weekend and that Melissa and Sophia could do something while they're gone. But no, instead we get a pointless girl power episode because the guys have to look bad for a good Aesop moral. I don't think it's a bad episode, but because of that stupid Aesop moral, it does bring the episode down for me. This is probably where the show grows in terms of the writing and animation. When Cyril decides to team up with the car company Mammoth Motors to build a car factory in the Evergreen Forest, it's up to the gang to face off against Cyril in a race with their solar-powered car against the Sneermobile to stop the company from possibly polluting in the Evergreen Forest. What makes this episode really good is the race itself. You get to see the great design of the Sneermobile with its Dr. Claw-like design and gadgets, to the silly but still impressive design of the solar-powered car the Raccoons use, which was designed by Cedric as originally Cyril was going to use this car to sell to Mammoth Motors. Which brings me to the character of Mr. Mammoth. He's actually one of the funnier businessmen in the show as he mumbles so bad that he has to have a bird translate everything for him. It's also pretty funny that the writers decided to make him a rhino that's very calm and quiet as opposed to making him loud and bombastic. The only other thing I'll mention is that the ending is also very good as it has a similar comedic end as episode 2. This episode probably has the sweetest moment between Cedric and Cyril, which shows off more of the writing in the series. Cedric feels like Cyril isn't appreciating him and decides to live with the Raccoons to teach his father a lesson. What makes this episode so good is that we get to see the relationship between Cyril and Cedric grow as Cyril starts to realize how much Cedric means to him. In my opinion, the reason why I think Cyril stands out as a good environmental villain is because of his relationship with Cedric. If this were any other series, I feel like those writers would make Cyril just be a heartless, greedy monster that cares nothing for the environment. But because these writers added Cedric in the series, he becomes Cyril's emotional ground, or someone who is able to rein in Cyril when he gets too out of control. And in this episode, we get to see him be a great villain as well as a good father figure to Cedric, with this episode showing what Cyril did to raise Cedric. The only complaint that I have with this episode is that we also have a side story dealing with the Ranger family. I've already expressed my feelings about how pointless these characters are in the specials, but they have it worse in the show, as their only relevance in this episode is to have the exact same problem as the main cast, but without any of the same emotional significance, like Cedric and Cyril in this episode. Hell, they don't even interact with the other characters except for Schaefer and Brew, but that's just because they're the owners. Thank God they were written out of this show after the first season. This is definitely the best episode of the season, at least to me. Bert, Cedric, and Brew discover a treasure map and decide to head out to look for the buried treasure, but the group is also followed by Cyril and the pigs when they overhear their discovery. What I love about this episode is that it's a simple, fun adventure that has a lot of great atmosphere, and an even great moment at the end with Cyril and Cedric. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, as I think everyone should check out this series at some point, so I would say that if you're going to watch any episode from the first season, this is the episode you should check out. Honestly, this episode reminds me of a moment in the DuckTales movie. Bert and Ralph go to check up on Cedric as he and Cyril are implementing his new security system for his vault. Unfortunately, Cedric and Ralph get trapped in the vault, and it's up to the rest of the crew to get them out of the vault before it's locked up for the next 24 hours, and they lose their air supply. In all honesty, I do love this episode for how tense and epic the rescue is, with all the characters having some important function to rescue their friends. Except for Melissa. I don't know why, but they always have her as the background character. It's a shame that she never gets any episode dedicated to her outside of being the girlfriend. But the one thing I find weird about this episode is that a lot of it reminds me of the ending to the DuckTales movie, where Scrooge, Webby, and the nephews have to sneak into the vault to get the genie free. Maybe it's the color palette or similar music, but every time I see this episode, it looks similar to me. Must be coincidence. Oh goody, another episode that involves the Ranger family. Ralph has been given an opportunity to work at a major newspaper company in the city and is considering on taking the job as it would mean a better life for him and Melissa. But when Cyril hears about this, he starts making plans to destroy and rebuild the Evergreen Forest in his own image. Most of this episode is built on the whole will they won't they scenario of Ralph and Melissa leaving the forest when we know that never happens. And once again, the parallels of the Ranger family don't really matter, as that storyline comes to the exact same conclusion. Yeah, they just show up in the first 2 minutes of the episode, and then we don't see them again until the end of the episode, and nothing is lost because of this. This is a very dumb episode. Bert starts noticing something strange going on at Cyril's mansion. Of course, no one believes him, so Bert decides to go out of his way to prove that Cyril's up to something bad. I feel like this episode should have been placed early in the season, as it would have shown how Bert has earned the respect of his friends. Besides Bert's lack of respect in this episode, the reason behind Cyril doing what he's doing is what drags this episode down. He has insomnia, so he tries everything to get him to sleep, and then he comes to the brilliant conclusion of paving over the forest and building a parking lot just so he can sleep. Like, really? I feel like that would cause you more problems than it would help them. The only good thing that comes out of this episode is that this is the last time we see the Ranger family. After this, we only see Schaefer and Brew for the rest of the series, so I guess that's 1 point in the show's favor? If the last episode was dumb, then this episode is the dumbest of the season. Cedric and Sophia overhear Melissa and Ralph talking about how the king and queen are coming to the Evergreen Forest. Then it leads to everyone trying to get ready to greet them, with Bert wanting to be knighted and Cyril wanting his family's knighthood restored. I'm going to spoil the ending of this episode because, just like the first episode, it's a misunderstanding episode. Yeah, so it turns out what Ralph and Melissa were talking about was that they were putting on a play where they starred as the king and queen. And then everyone laughs at how silly this misunderstanding was. This is a horribly written episode for just how dumb the writers think that kids are. For one thing, if you're trying to keep this play a secret, then how would you advertise for it? You clearly want people to come to your show, so you'd have to advertise for it, meaning that all your friends would see that you're putting on this play, and it would defeat the whole reason you kept this stupid secret. But at least I can say that this is the only episode that actually is bad from this season. The last episode in the season is one that I don't really know what to make of. Cyril intends to run the Raccoons newspaper out of business by making a deal with a local entrepreneur, Mr. Knox, help him stop the shipments of paper and ink. All Mr. Knox asks in return is that he is paid in gold. Get it? The episode isn't too bad. It has some good drama and a few good emotional moments from the gang as they might have to close the newspaper down and go their separate ways. There isn't too much to tell with the new character of Mr. Knox other than he's a stereotypical Texas businessman, but he would return in other episodes, so he might get a better character in the rest of the series. However, what drags the episode down is the ending. I won't give it away, but it does involve something really dumb on Cyril's part. Overall, I think that this season is good, but does have a few hiccups here and there. I'd say the best episode is Buried Treasure, as it has the most fun with its concept and has the best tension. The worst episode is Rumors, as it's just badly written and feels like the writers needed to put in more effort to make the story work. I give the first season of the Raccoons a 5 out of 10. It's just average compared to the specials, but I do look forward to looking at the next season to see what kind of adventures I'll return to. Well, thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Waluigi, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover, cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.